This is the best moments of the BBQ Central Show in 10 minutes or less. Ever wish you could re-listen to your favorite interview or segment? Do you enjoy hearing older shows for the first time in years? Then the best moments of the BBQ Central Show in 10 minutes or less is just what you need. Thanks for listening and enjoy the show.
Greetings and welcome to this edition of the best moments of the BBQ Central Show in 10 minutes or less. Today's show was pulled from January the 28th in 2014. Going to be a doubleheader for you today. All Steven Raichlen, talking all kinds of odd meat goodness, a bunch of other Steven Raichlen stuff. Let's get right to it. Here's Greg Rempe, Steven Raichlen, from January the 28th in 2014.
Anyway, my next guest, a multiple-time author, TV show host, cooking class instructor, and frequent guest to the show. We waste a little time in welcoming back Steven Raichlen to the show. Steven, how are you, my friend?
Great. How about you?
Doing absolutely fabulous, Steven. How does the new year find you?
The new year finds me finishing up a new book. It's called Man-Made Meals, an essential cookbook for guys. A little bit of a departure from my laser focus on barbecue. Yes, I include barbecue and grilling, but it's really sort of a giant joy of cooking for men, telling you everything you need to know. As you know, the tail end of a book is when you're going over galleys and pages. It's a huge amount of work, and this has been a 3-year project. The end is in sight. That makes me really happy.
Is this geared more towards the single Joe, or is this just for guys in general, married or not?
This is everybody from college students starting out with their first cooking experience in their dorm room to boomers who are maybe starting out with cooking in retirement, starting a new life. People who are ardent cooking enthusiasts want to take it up to the next level. Beginners. It's a 650-page book, so there's something in it for everybody.
Steven, do you think I'm going to sound like an old guy when I say this, but do you think as a younger generation coming up, I'm 39, getting ready to turn 40 in July, but you have the guys that are coming out of college now, do you find them or that generation to be one that has been catered to so much that they really don't know how to kind of fend for themselves, or do you find it to be quite the opposite because of...
On the contrary, I find that the generation coming up now, having grown up entirely with food television and just incredible rising sophistication and competence in American cooking, I think this generation is more juiced about cooking than certainly than my generation, and then we're more informed, better ingredients available. People care about not only what they're eating, but where it comes from, if the animals were raised humanely, if fruits and vegetables have a great flavor, not only look better. No, I am extremely optimistic about the next generation.
Steven Raichlen joining me here on the show. You said that this is a 3-year project. I mean, you've written any number of books, whether it be related
29, but this is actually number 30, but who's counting?
Who's counting? Absolutely. Most of these have been, as you said, focused on the live fire aspect of it. You'd made that huge departure a year or so ago with the novel that had nothing to do with barbecue or grilling per se. And then, you're kind of back at it. 3 years, is that the longest it's taken to get a book kind of from start to finish?
No, Planet Barbecue was a 4-year project. Barbecue Bible was a 4-year project. If any of those of your listeners who are familiar with my books know, I write big books that take a long time, and one thing about a book, you can't rush it, and in this age of tweets with 144 characters, it's really nice to have the luxury to spend 3 or 4 years developing a theme.
Is there ever a point in that? 4 years, 3 years seems like a huge time span to me. Of course, I have the attention of a small mouse. But it seems like maybe in once you get to that year and a half or even 2 years, where at 4 years, that's just 50% of the way that you could have a tendency to lose focus. How are you able to really stay on track and push towards that finish line?
Well, first of all, The answer to that is that it's so fascinating. The research for me is so fascinating. I mean, this is not just a collection of recipes. I have one of the features of the book is a series of what are called food dudes, where I interview actors like Stanley Tucci, activists like Michael Pollan, chefs like Thomas Keller, young guys, old guys. And the interviews are all about their attitudes about cooking, their philosophies of cooking, what they think it's important, what guys should learn, what we should keep in mind, the mistakes we make. So the process of researching this book has been so fascinating that I don't think my attention wavered for a minute. I mean, I also want to say this is not the only thing I've done over the last 3 years. I mean, if you follow my website, you know there's a new blog every twice a week, a new newsletter twice a month. Magazine work, the TV work, you know, there's a lot of other activities that go on. In fact, during that time, I've started my research on my next book, which is a return to the world of barbecue. Next book will be a book focusing solely on smoking.
Stephen Reichlin joining me here on the show. The website, barbecuebible.com. That's barbecue spelled BARBECUE, or as I like to call it, the right way. Let me diverge just for 1 second, and this was kind of a topic that I was ballyhooing to you about a little bit, and it has to do with horse meat. And let me give you a little backstory here. I was talking with a guy last week who is makes his living in the butcher business, specialty meat shop, and we were talking about this how the beef industry has grown from where it started back even when the Indians and the Pilgrims had come over all of a sudden, and then there was the huge meat farms and the meat packing, and now it's almost gone into this, as you had said, people are caring about how they're raised and how they're executed and how they're finished, and almost like meat is wine, so you could trace it all the way back and kind of see where the lineage has gone through. And we said, well, there doesn't seem to be any outlet for horses, and we had kind of talked about it last week, and in Italy it seems to be quite a staple on the menu, horse meat. I mean, you're a guy that's been well-traveled not only across this country but across the world. Is horse meat something that other countries do partake in and find it favorable to your knowledge?
Well, there are countries that do eat horse meat, particularly France. France comes to mind, and when I was a student in Paris back in the 1970s, almost every block in Market Street had what was called a chevaline, a horse butcher shop. And you would recognize it by a little golden horse head over the marquee. The French do still eat horse. I would say consumption has gone down. I've eaten horse. It's a leaner meat than beef. My recollection is that it's a sweet meat. But I think, to be honest with you, it's going to be a pretty uphill battle to convince large numbers of Americans to eat horse.
Is it because there is that personal or perceived personal relationship that horses seem to be a little bit more domesticated, like a cat or a dog, versus, a cow or steer is kind of seen as something that is raised to be killed and eaten, where I guess it's not really seen that much as a horse. Is that kind of the main mantra or the main issue that you would be trying to overcome?
Yeah, I think it's the emotional and the perceptional relationship we have with horses. I mean, look, in Peru, they eat guinea pig, and it's not exotic or shock food. It just happens to be something that people eat, and also in Peru, people eat beef heart. And it's, again, not for shock value or machismo or anything, but it's just what people eat. In Vietnam, I've eaten dog. I think that would be a pretty tough sell back in the United States. Yeah. But, for a lot of Asians, our love of dairy products, and in particular stinky cheeses, is completely incomprehensible. So, I think, I'm all for cultural differences. I think in this homogenized world, the more we can hold on to our traditions, the better we are.
Stephen Reichlin joining me here on the show. Stephen, obviously in a couple weeks we have Super Bowl coming up. That is widely considered to be a great day of overindulgence, whether it be through the beverage or through the food. I like beverages just as much as the next guy, but as far as food is concerned, and perhaps this is the wrong impression that I get about Super Bowl, there seems to be a more of an effort placed on the let's call it the finger foods or the appetizers more than some of those big hunks of protein. I'm sure they are there, but is that a fair assessment? Do you think a lot of people like to get away with the over the top hors d'oeuvres or the heavy hors d'oeuvres than having a real main course?
Yeah, I do. It's an interesting observation. I know this morning on my website we put up a blog about dips around the world that are cooked on the grill. So, the inevitable and tortured onion dip gets a new life when the onions are caramelized on the grill.
To put in your request for a future show, please contact John Solberg via email at johnjon@bbqcentralshow.com.
That's right. That's where you get me, like the big man said. John, John at the bbqcentralshow.com. Love to hear from you. Would also love it very much if you would follow the Big Barbecue Central Show on social media. It is at BBQ Central Show on Instagram and Twitter. /BBQ Central Show over on Facebook. Always appreciated. Very easy to do. I'm really curious what tortured onion dip is, and I hope Stephen describes it here. If he does not describe it here, I'm going to have to hit the Google box and try to find tortured onion dip. Sure I can. I babbled long enough. Let's jump back into the second segment today with Stephen Reichlin, Greg Rempe, January 28th, 2014.
Grilled eggplant dip, grilled pepper dip, and last week's blog was on wings, and our next blog is actually going to pit Seattle plank salmon against Colorado bison burgers. But you make an interesting observation, and I'm not sure why. I'm not sure why the big hunk of meat does not turn up. Maybe because so there's so many Super Bowl parties, and people like to stand around and gather around for the parties. But we do. One statistic that really gladdens my heart, and especially in this brutal winter, and I know you guys are just having a terrible time up there in Cleveland.
Yeah.
Is that Super Bowl is the busiest grilling day of winter, and it's the second biggest food day in the country, the first being Thanksgiving. So, hats off to anybody out there who shovels that path to their grill.
Yeah, brutal out here, no doubt about it. So as far as recipes are concerned, you're going to be firing up the game. What do you recommend, or what are you going to be trying out for the Super Bowl this year? The wing, buffalo wing, which was sort of went hand in hand with buffalo, the great string of victories of the Buffalo Bills. I believe it was back in the 1990s, and the buffalo wing that was invented, the Anchor the bar in Buffalo. But to me, if something tastes good baked or deep fried, it tastes even better grilled. For me, there's no better way to cook a wing than what I call smoke roasting. That's not smoking low and slow like you would do for a brisket, because then the skin gets kind of rubbery. But when you indirect grill at a higher heat, so you both crisp the skin and smoke the meat, that for me is the way to go. And what I like to do instead of the traditional hot sauce, I like to do a pan fry of garlic and jalapeno chilies and cilantro, and pour that mixture over the wings. It's killer. Stephen Reichlin joining me here on the show. BarbecueBible.com is the place to go to make sure that you're up to speed on what Stephen is up to. Obviously, you'd mentioned how cold it was up here in the Northeast and a lot of other places across the country. When you are cooking in the summer and the springtime, it's one thing, but when you're cooking outside in the winter, it's a whole different monster. As far as some key things or key items to remember to take into account before you fire that grill up, as far as cooking in the winter, what's your best advice?
Okay, and I do have to preface these remarks by saying that I am in Miami, talking to you from Miami, where it was 82 degrees.
You don't have to say that. That's just the thing.
Nonetheless, I used to live in Boston, chip the ice off my grill. So, number one, do not light your grill under tree boughs laden with snow. It may seem obvious, but, we've all seen it happen. Number two, resist the temptation to do grilling in a garage or in a carport or any closed area, because especially if you work with charcoal, you will get a toxic gas called carbon monoxide. Number three, and this is counterintuitive, but remember, a grill is hot. Sometimes when you're grilling outside and it's so cold, you forget that the metal pieces are hot. So keep that in mind. Number four, remember that you'll need somewhere between 20 and 30% to add 20 to 30% more cooking time when it's cold, particularly if you're indirect grilling. And finally, what I used to do when I was in New England, or I remember giving a class up in Calgary. Of course, that was only September, but we got 6 inches of snow during the class. Light an extra kettle grill, fill it with charcoal. We have a couple extra chimneys lit, so you've got the extra firepower if you need to boost the heat. By the way, we're doing a whole series on cold weather grilling on barbecuebible.com next week.
All right, so look for that. One of the other things that goes hand in hand with this whole Super Bowl thing and the eating, as I had mentioned, was libations. And one of the posts that I had saw on Barbecue Bible recently was smoked drinks. And I think it was maybe a year and a half ago, I was first introduced to some grilled cocktails, but this kind of changes it up even a little bit more. What can you tell me about smoked drinks?
Well, smoked drinks came on my radar, I guess, about 6 months ago, first with a trip to Phoenix, where I had a drink where the bartender, there's a cool tool called the Polyscience smoking gun, and imagine it sort of as a motorized bong. That's the only way I can think of it. But in the burner, you put hardwood chips, and it blows smoke out a tube into your drink. And they used it to actually smoke the inside of a brandy snifter, which was then filled with a mezcal-based cocktail, and it kind of demonstrated two ways to smoke a cocktail. And one is actually to fill the glass with smoke. The second is to use a smoky spirit, a spirit whose base ingredients are smoked, like cactus in the example of mezcal, which is a Mexican spirit, of course, or Scotch whiskey from the Isle of Islay. And the coolest way to do it is actually to take that rubber hose, insert it in a Bloody Mary or a Manhattan, cover the glass with plastic wrap, put a blast of smoke in for about 3 to 5 minutes, let it infuse into the drink, and then stir and taste it. And it will taste like the potable version of a smoked rib or smoked brisket. It's a really cool technique.
Does it take a drink or two or a sip or two to kind of get used to it? Because I imagine your olfactory senses and your sense of taste has to be going crazy for something like that.
To me, it was very quick, and it just made sense instantly, and it made me feel like, why have I lived most of my life without having smoked cocktails?
Stephen Reichlin joining me here on the show. Stephen, before I let you go, I wanted to ask you about another post that you had on Barbecue Bible, which is a fireplace grilling. Now, obviously, I guess if you have the open gas fireplaces, you could do it too, but I would imagine you're specifically talking about the wood-burning fireplace?
Yes, absolutely. We sort of tend to forget it, but our word focus as laser focus of this conversation, or when your wife tells you to focus on what she's saying, comes from the Latin word focus, meaning an indoor hearth, an indoor fireplace, where the ancient Romans used to do their cooking. And because it was in the center of the household and people gathered around it not only to keep warm but to cook their food and eat, it really was the focal point of life. Grilling in the fireplace for me, it's a fantastic way to cook, because what's your fuel? Your fuel is wood. And wood has way more flavor than propane. It has even way more flavor than charcoal. It's the ultimate way to cook. And in this blog, I give you tips on different ways to arrange your fire, different tools you need for fireplace grilling. But it's a really, and it's particularly this time of year, man, if you have a fireplace, it's a great way to keep your love of barbecue going during these cold winter months. And
nothing that's, overly messy or anything like that.
No, I mean, and it can be, it can be as simple or as elaborate as you want. A few years ago, I designed a Tuscan grill, which is basically a cast iron grill grate that is on legs that you slide in kind of to the apron of your fireplace. Using a grill hoe or shovel, you shovel the embers under it, and then you can cook a steak on it. That's the traditional way of cooking a Florentine bistecca alla Fiorentina, Florentine steak. Another cool thing to do is you just place a row of bricks in front of your fireplace and place whole onions you hollow out the top and put butter and balsamic vinegar in the onions. You can use a grill ring, one of my grill rings, or a crumpled aluminum foil grill ring, and let the onions roast by the radiant heat of the grill, of the fireplace. But it's, fire and smoke and the comfort of being indoors and the fascination of watching the flickering fire. I mean, it just doesn't get better than that.
Gotta agree. Doesn't get better than that. Always a wonderful thing. Hey, would you like to hear the rest of this show? There is a link in today's show notes to take you to the complete episode. You can find that over at thebbqcentralshow.com. Also, a great search feature over there. You don't want to search, but you'd like to hear a show? Shoot me an email, john@thebbqcentralshow.com. I'll find it and cut it up for you. Happy to do so. Time for me to get out of here. So until next time, on the best moments of the Barbecue Central Show in 10 minutes or less, I am your host, John Solberg, and I do look forward to talking to you again soon.